For your ears only for the week of June 9th, I'm David Alpern.
I'm Catherine Herzog.
Put simply, Susan exemplifies the finest tradition of American diplomacy and leadership. So thank you, Susan, for being willing to take on this next assignment.
The information acquired does not include the content of any communications or the name of any subscriber. It relates exclusively to metadata, such as the telephone number or the length of a call.
So your donors are confidential. That's protected by law. You have proof that the IRS leaked your confidential donor information to a group that opposes your point of view, and your donors were harassed as a result of that.
We don't want to be back here in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, dealing with another 5 or 10 million illegal immigrants. And so that's the key. And people don't trust the Department of Homeland Security.
New controversies joined old ones to shadow the administration last week. As his next national security advisor, President Obama chose Susan Rice, main lightning rod for criticism of errors that led to and followed the fatal attack on U.S. outposts in Benghazi, Libya. And the administration had to play defense after leaks that disclosed more than ever about longstanding surveillance of domestic phone calls and even closer scrutiny of overseas Internet traffic. Improper vetting of conservative groups by the Internal Revenue Service, as highlighted at House hearings by Republican Paul Ryan, continued to undermine public trust in the federal government.
In the Senate, Florida Republican Mark Rubio argued that a similar lack of trust on border security was the key issue for immigration reform, not demands for a path to citizenship. To consider these and other political developments of the week, for your ears only, we're joined by John Hudak, Brookings Institution Fellow in Governance Studies. Welcome to the program.
David, Catherine, thanks for having me.
Let's start with the domestic communications surveillance. Congressionally authorized and court-approved, it apparently tracks most all calls made on major U.S. systems, arguably so those involving numbers linked to suspected foreign terrorists can be quickly identified and investigated under additional court order. Is it ironic to see the way so many liberals and conservatives have raised a cry about this protection under the post-9/11 Patriot Act?
It really is, Catherine. And in fact, there's a couple of ironic parts here. There are liberals and conservatives who are crying about this, who are calling foul on this. Then you also have other liberals and conservatives who normally disagree on everything, and they're coming together to support the president's actions here. And so what you have is the same sort of bickering that we always have, but different coalitions of people bickering about it.
Obama says the reading of overseas web traffic does not target anyone living in the United States, but wouldn't they show up if the messages come to or from them?
I mean, it seems that way. Some information has been leaked about what this program entails, but there's still certainly plenty of information regarding this program that we don't know and we likely won't know. But you're absolutely right. If the calls are being made from a foreign country and they're coming into the U.S., they're going to have data both on where the call originated and where the call's destination was.
Do you think these vast operations, maybe also including some credit card monitoring, cast doubt on the president's recent speech downgrading the global war on terror?
Yeah, the president's recent speech where he essentially talked about the need to end this war, that this can't be an endless war, I'm not entirely sure that this program conflicts for it. Foreign intelligence supervision has always been part of what America does, and it's done it before the war on terror began, and it's going to continue to do it into the future. And so I'm not sure that there's that much of a conflict there. That said, I think the conflict is over just the vast scope of the intelligence gathering that the administration is doing. And that certainly it conflicts with some of our broader values about what the country stands for.
Well, people talk about the need for a public conversation on this issue, but is that really possible when we know potential terrorists are eager for any details about traps being set for them?
No, that's absolutely right. Whenever we're talking about foreign intelligence or really any type of law enforcement action, public conversations become very tricky because you want a free and open society. Our democratic values demand it. But at the same time, we have an interest in making sure that our operations are secret so that the people we're trying to spy on or look into aren't tipped off. And so this is, I think, debate that needs to happen is over where that line is drawn and not necessarily really the details of these programs.
Let's turn to the promotion of Susan Rice and former journalist activist Susan Power to replace her as UN ambassador. Both are considered liberal interventionists. So do you see Obama setting himself up for a greater U.S. military role in Syria, or is he protecting himself against liberal complaints that he's not paying enough attention to arguments for that role?
I think it's more the latter. I think that the president selected Susan Rice and Samantha Power because he thought they were very well qualified and that these are individuals who the base of his party really supports. And just as a little bit of full disclosure, I'm actually a colleague of Samantha Power's husband. It's not going to affect what I say today, but I just wanted to put that out there. It's not really going to affect, these decisions aren't going to affect the president's decision-making on whether or not we enter Syria. I think if the president wanted to do that, he would have already. But at the end of the day, I think the president knows where he's going to go with Syria, and these new faces aren't going to do much.
On immigration reform, Senator Rubio and some House conservatives seem to be moving away from the kind of reform with a clear path to citizenship the GOP leaders hoped would win more of the growing Hispanic vote. What are the implications for passage of some sort of reform and for Republican prospects in the 2014 congressional elections and the 2016 presidential race?
Yeah, immigration reform is really just a headache for Republicans, and it's difficult for them because members of their party are so different. You have people who are very strongly in favor of reform. You have other people who are very protectionist when it comes to immigration policy. And throwing into the mix the fact that the conversation isn't about what's good policy. The conversation is starting from how do we win the next election and how can this policy help us win the next election. When those interests and those ideas and those forces come together to try to push a policy forward or hold a policy back, it always becomes extraordinarily difficult. And what we've seen this week are the people who are interested in running for president in 2016 are the ones who are now very publicly walking a tightrope between what they think they can achieve and what they think is going to get them votes when they run for president.
Staying in Republican ranks, what do you make of New Jersey Governor Chris Christie arranging a special October election at an estimated cost of $24 million to replace the late Senator Frank Lautenberg, but avoid having just announced Democratic candidate Cory Booker, the popular mayor of Newark, on the ticket in November when Christie himself runs for re-election? Didn't the governor once say he'd never force such a cost on the state?
Yeah, this story is actually one of the most interesting ones of the week, I think. Governor Christie is a very talented politician. He understands politics. He's very good at it. He knows he's positioned himself to be a Republican in a very blue state with an approval rating over 70%. He's very good at doing what's going to work for him politically. This week he did the exact opposite of that. His scheduling of this election is costly. It's laden with politics. It's obvious what he's trying to do. And at the end of the day, I don't think he gets any benefits out of it.
John Hudak is a Brookings Institution Fellow in Governance Studies.
Quote from the news, vulnerable to challenge. That was New Mexico Attorney General Gary King on the state law banning same-sex marriage. Indeed, by week's end, it became the target of two new court cases as the U.S. Supreme Court prepared rulings on the controversial issue. Also last week, a New York Times CBS poll showed a majority of Americans believe that same-sex marriage is more properly dealt with by state legislation than by federal law.
Next, surveillance and the informal China summit for your ears only.